We continue our story with the Golden Caves of El Dorado, where Zilla, or Godzilla, in his Stygian Zenogre armor, and Leah, who apparently is the Serious Handle's actual name, are actually exploring. They even come across some of the Golden Grimmeljackins or the Gargalakas and stuff like that, and well, they do begin communicating with them, telling them how there is a powerful elder dragon in this region, but it seems to be running away from something. So Leah asks him if, well, you wanna fight it? To which he's like, heck yeah, let me show the way. So this is where the king of the Golden Gadulacos actually leads the way. And keep in mind, Zilla has been, I would probably say, with the guild over for a month, so he's very experienced in taking down Elder Dragon level monsters. Keep in mind, he was in charge of actually hunting down some of the monsters in the Guiding Lands, like Raging Brachydios and Silver Rathalos and Gold Rathian and stuff like that. So this is where they actually find Taroth. And the Serious Handler actually gives, or Leah, excuse me, actually gives him permission to go ahead and get to work. So considering the sheer fact that Zilla is in human form, Kulve is immediately confused when something smaller than her straight up rocks her and rams her right into the wall, and she's looking like, wait, what the? I'm sorry, I must be hallucinating. Did this small little thing just ram into me? And so Kulve actually tries to use her golden horns and actually tries to ram him. However, Zilla not only sidesteps, but leaps off the wall and then side kicks her right into the, well, opposite side of the golden cavern walls. And so Kulve actually starts to unleash her fire breath, actually heating up the area. However, Zilla just runs right through it, pretty much barrels through the low level energy blast and straight up uppercuts her, sending her sprawling and reeling back, and she even tumbles into one of the stalagmites, or one of the boulders in the area, or one of the yeah, I think they're called stalagmites, the ones on the ground that just shoot it straight up, just jewed up. So yeah, one of the rocks in the area. And so he then grabs her and then slams her by her tail. And just, honestly, she's in kind of like starstruck at the moment. Because imagine someone beating you, ragdolling you, and they're not even 1/10 your size. And this is where even the King Gadulaka is looking like, dang, so, how the heck is he able to do that? So Leo's kind of like, dang, I kind of forget he's that strong. But I mean, geez, he has been here and working with us for a month. So, yeah, carry on, carry on. So pretty much this beating goes around for a little bit till Taroth actually enters her enraged mode. And this is where the entire area begins to heat up, gold melting onto her, pretty much reinforcing her armor, and she even heats up the ground. However, Zilla, seeing this, takes the opportunity to burrow beneath and actually utilizes Kulve's own, heat against her. Actually starts digging in certain areas and pretty much keeps her at bay. This is where he also kind of like goes in and out of the holes to pretty much ram into her. Okay, wait, I realize how that sounds. Yeah, but it is what it is at this point. And so he kind of repeats this over and over again, despite the uncomfortability of moving through molten golden flooring. Yeah, I know that has to hurt. However, when Taroth goes for another fire breath, Zilla doesn't burrow. He jumps right over it and actually clings to the ceiling. Then, with all the force he can and muster, pushes himself down and slams right onto her back, causing her to fall into essentially a monstrous size, or an elder dragon size pitfall trap, which collapses multiple rubble on top of her and him. So Leah runs over and is like, Junior, Zilla, are you okay? And he pretty much emerges out of it like, oh God. Yeah, remind me not to do that again to an elder dragon. And she actually laughs as she pulls him up, and the two actually make eye contact, and then they have that little moment where they're like, and they kind of look in each other's eyes. But right now they have to get to the next era where the King Gadulaka leads them, but he stops. He says he's not going in there anymore. And this is where they actually see the shedded Safi'jiiva skin. And Leah actually begins to take note of this. She's like, it's a Safi'jiiva, but it's a skin shed. And then this is where Zilla walks over to the other one, and he's like, another one, and then he also sees another one, and then another one. And so this is where he begins to conclude that, so you said your previous hunter killed Xeno'jiiva, right? To which he's like, yeah, but there were other eggs apparently, right? Yeah. So what if this was a Xeno'jiiva that was simply left unattended for quite a while, and it simply grew? And so he begins looking around the area, following the skin sheds, and sees that each one just kind of leads into a pattern until he stops and freezes and sees a slumbering Safi'jiiva. However, their presence seems to alert it, and it actually gets up and, well, does the same thing it did in the intro, walks around and then roars. And this is where Zilla simply states, yeah, let's go ahead and get up out of here. And Leah has no ifs, ands, or buts about it. She's like, yeah, let's get out of here and report this back to the guild. So they get on their Murnos and, well, head right back to the guild, where the fleet master states that the main hunter, or, you know, the residential hunter, is kind of out and about hunting another elder dragon, or another share each Valda, if you will. And this is where the serious handler, or Leah, pretty much informs with Zilla that they'll be investigating and taking care of the Safi'jiiva, to which they get permission from the guild, to actually go into this higher class or higher ordeal situation. And, well, Zilla begins to question, what the heck is Safi'jiiva? And to which this is where the huntsman pretty much explains what Safi'jiiva could possibly be, even the possibility that it could be a juvenile stage of a black dragon. To which Zilla looks at him like, a black dragon? What is that? To which the huntsman pretty much explains it. The lore, the details, the types of black dragons, and the most fearsome of them all that he hopes that they'll never have to see, that being Fatalis. But right now he tells them all to go ahead and get some rest, for they have a longer day to pretty much go ahead. And so this is where Zilla makes his way to his room, or his tent-like area, and he's kind of sitting there thinking to himself on if he can beat such a creature as this. And this is where Leah joins him. So one thing does lead to another, and they do wind up sleeping with each other that night. However, it is because they both are kind of afraid that they may not, or he may not, come back out of this, so they're having that moment now rather than later. So the next morning, when they're both feeling great and everything from their last night experience, this is where they both go and get the go-ahead to handle the Safi'jiiva. Zilla makes sure that his gauntlets are in working order, and, well, he's ready for the battle. And without any hesitation, he actually throws a rock at Safi'jiiva to wake him up. Yeah, I mean, it's not the smartest thing to do, but we know good and well that Zilla Jr. is one of the most intelligent monsters, so he has a reason for it. And this is where, when he jumps down, he roars at it, and roars in a more challenging way. And Safi'jiiva, looking at him like he's got some audacity, does roar back. And this is where, well, the two titans begin their battle. This is where Zilla prepares his gauntlets and lunges at Safi'jiiva, while Safi'jiiva lunges right back at him. And so this battle is very much a show of skill, speed, and intelligence versus Safi'jiiva's endurance, stamina, durability, and his overwhelming power. And that's where Zilla has a hard time competing. It's power. The Emperor's Drop, or the Sapphire Emperor, it's too much. Even when he burrows underground to try and avoid it, the force of the impact causes him to simply bounce right back out like he's nothing more than a basketball. It becomes overwhelming. It makes him angry, and it makes Leah worry. And he feels something inside of him. Something that he knew he would get back eventually, but it's not the full power of it. But he knows good and well he can finally use it. And so he and Safi'jiiva go through a couple repeats, and he wants to see if Safi'jiiva will follow this pattern. So he burrows, Safi'jiiva attacks. When Safi'jiiva does the Emperor's Drop, Zilla's waiting for the exact opportunity to use this attack. And so he begins charging up, and Leah sees his armor go from its normal Stygian red form to its green state. And so when Safi'jiiva goes for its Emperor's Flame, or, the Sapphire Drop, he actually unleashes his green atomic flame. It bursts through his helmet, completely destroying it. And yeah, this not only counteracts Safi'jiiva, this causes it to blow up right in its face, and then Zilla begins to push forward with that exact blast and uses it to crater Safi'jiiva into the wall, causing massive amounts of damage to it. And this is where we see like burn marks, we see some of the flesh of it just scorched on his chest, and it even falls to the ground in absolute pain. However, Zilla doesn't let up and actually pulls a, 2014 Godzilla and starts spamming it, hitting it in the face, hitting it in the sides, dodging around it, and then kind of just boosting up in the air. And this is where he utilizes the opportunity to get Safi'jiiva to fly, and actually utilizes to, pretty much keeps blasting at its legs so that Safi'jiiva eventually does take off into the air. However, using its leaping ability, he goes right for Safi'jiiva's neck, almost in a mount position. However, this is a bit different. Considering he is as strong as his beast-like state, he actually hangs on tight and actually moves to Safi'jiiva's horns and forces it right back to the ground, where he snaps its neck cleanly. However, that took a lot out of him. I mean, you're wrestling a infant or juvenile stage of a black dragon. It's very hard. And Leah rushes over to him, gives him a kiss, tells him how amazing he is. And she says, since it's here, you have earned its everything at this point. To which he does make himself his secondary armor, that being Safi'jiiva. However, one small modification: the mouth part can open up so he can utilize his atomic fire without any damage. And so the Admiral does congratulate him as he comes out. However, he does inform him that, what if we told you something else has been destroying the Xeno'jiiva eggs? And this is where another person appears, that being their residential hunter. We're going to call him Reggie. Yeah, I think Reggie's pretty much a good name. So Reggie and Zilla both do meet each other, and they pretty much shake hands, recognizing each other as powerful allies and, potential friends. And this is where we also see both of the handlers actually interacting with each other, and they even have like a little bit of a banter where they're actually stating that which hunter is pretty much better than the other. And then we also get the fact that, we fast forward to the moment where they're talking about the other monster that's been hunting down and destroying Xeno'jiiva eggs, Alatreon. To which, this is where he looks at the huntsman, and the huntsman gives him a nod. And he says, so this is a black dragon. To which Reggie's like, yeah, we're going to be taking that on. But considering your track record, and very impressive, by the way, I mean, wrestling a brute Tiger Rex and punching off against a raging Brachydios, dude, you are a legend. And so this is where they basically go off together. They investigate the same area that Alatreon is meant to appear in, and lo and behold, the blazing black dragon appears. And so this is where Zilla's a little bit shocked. He's like, oh shoot, this a black dragon? And Reggie's like, yep, that's a black dragon, the blazing black dragon. And he says, so that means Fatalis is, yep, Fatalis is number one. And so they both get into position, readying their weapons. Reggie has his hunting horn, while Zilla pretty much has his gauntlets, ready for battle and ready to just simply brawl with the monster. And this is where Reggie actually begins to use more of his support-like style of the hunting horn, where you're able to boost an opponent's health, abilities, and their attack potency and defense, everything. And keep in mind, with Zilla getting his upgrade from Safi'jiiva, this means he can manipulate its flames to actually give it a boost. So, with that being said, this means that each blow that Zilla does is just straight up 10 times worse than what he could originally do. Like every blow, kick, every punch, kick, elbow, knee, dropping hammer fist begins to wail on Alatreon. While Alatreon does try to use its long range attacks to try and attack Reggie, Zilla makes sure the attention is focused on him by keeping up the pressure and the offensive capabilities. Essentially, they work very perfectly, with one being more supportive while the other one is a bit of offense and kind of defense. I mean, Zilla does manage to withstand a couple blasts of fire, ice, and dragon. However, this is where it gets intense when he decides to attach himself to Alatreon and actually begins beating down on its head. And so Alatreon begins panicking, swirling around, using its fire to try and eliminate him. And the first time is successful, where Zilla has no other choice but to duck a dragon element blast. And he's like, oh, so that's the third one. Maybe we could try something else. To which this is where Reggie is like, yep, I got you. And this is where he actually begins to sing a draining or a depower buff for Alatreon. And this is where Zilla decides to let's try that again. And so Reggie boosts his jumping capabilities or boosts his physical capabilities, and he lands squarely on Alatreon's back, full force knocking the black dragon right towards the ground. However, he does not leave its back for a second. He begins wailing on it, tearing into it, beating it with every single thing he has, and well, Alatreon begins to spin. It begins to do its eschaton judgment ability. And seeing this is where Zilla decides to do something a bit risky. And so his mouth parts open and he buries his face right on the back of Alatreon and breathes out everything. This is where not only the eschaton judgment, but the atomic fire seems to wrap around it, causing a huge explosion. And everything goes silent. Reggie is knocked back from it, and he recovers like an hour later to see Alatreon dead. And he's like, hey, Zilla? Bro, where you at? Come on, man, don't be dead. I was just starting to like you. Plus, Leo will kill me. Please wake up. And this is where he simply gets up and is like, oh, dude, I'm never doing that again. And that's where we're going to leave it off here, you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this. And yeah, we'll be getting into the Fatalis fight very soon. And then he'll be heading to another region. Peace.